I am Ari Kaplan, head of Evangelism.
I'm Pearl. I am a senior technical marketing engineer at Databricks as well.
And we had so much fun right before the opening session, being on the floor in front of over 12,000 people are at the conference, and tens of thousands of more tuning in live stream online. So everyone out there in the world, thank you so much. And we are pleased to have our very first guest, Simon. Say hello. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Simon Whiteley. Hello. What do I do? I make a lot of YouTube around Spark and Databricks and how to be a data engineer, how to do data science, all of that stuff. So obviously, this whole thing is crazy, and I've got so many videos I now need to make. But I run a consultancy in the UK. So I spend my life running advanced analytics and talking to clients about how they can build lakehouses, why they should build lakehouses, how you take traditional data warehousing and actually modernize it and build a modern data platform that you can then do the next steps on and go up that AI maturity curve. And that's what today's all about, right? How many times has AI been mentioned in the past 3 hours? It is madness. Yes. But yeah, that's me.
Absolutely.
I will say that you taught me how to use Delta when I first started at Databricks. I watched all your videos, and so I want to tell you thank you.
You are more than welcome. I've taught many people how to use Delta, and kind of shouted a bit too much in people's face that they should use Delta. That's kind of my brand is, you should use Delta.
Yes, yes.
And I myself, I'm somewhat new to being a Brickster, 7 months. And when I was through that job interview process, I was Googling who are the best presenters and educators. And I just wanted to hear you say things so educationally that non-technical and technical people
It's the British accent. The British accent sounds smart. That's all the trick is.
So I view as one of the best thought leaders out there. Just want to hear what's exciting you in the industry now.
I mean, I can't be here today without talking about LLMs and generative AI and things. And that's not my background, right? I am a data engineer by trade. These days, I spend my life, making videos and pictures and explaining data engineering. But it is just so pervasive all over the place. Absolutely everything. I mean, so all of the key announcements today is essentially saying, actually, we can use LLMs to make this stuff better.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Unity Catalog, actually then, with Lakehouse IQ, actually starting to understand your data and answer questions on your data in your terminology powered by LLMs. Data governance, that traditional data warehousing thing of what data do I have, can I query it, switching to go, actually, we can make that better with LLMs. Talking about the performance tuning optimizations, and I love anytime Reynolds Inn comes on and gives a keynote and then goes, we're going to get technical, you go, okay, cool, we're going to get technical. But that's saying we can use actual AI to improve how we optimize data, how we optimize queries. We can preempt the file layout so you don't need to do it yourself. And that's all LLMs all the way through it. So obviously there's huge announcements saying, you can build your own, you can actually, the data science side of things, you can actually build your own models and harness all that stuff. But also every other facet of what we're doing these days, actually you're going to be using it whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's going to be pervasive in everything that we do, which is just such a strong message, right? Mm-hmm. But it's pretty cool.
Yes, I've been seeing it all over the place about LLMs and how important it is, even for a regular citizen to get started. So my question for you is, how does a regular person get started using LLMs or learning more about it? Is it through your videos?
Well, as long as I can get Gavi, who's our data scientist, to do more videos with me, she's around somewhere. But that's the thing, right? People are going to start using it without realizing they're using it. People are actually starting to curate some of their data sets so they can then build out, kind of their own vector searches. And that's now no longer a super deep, building a cognitive search isn't this real deep specialist skill. It's take some documents, put it into a Delta table, create search, and point it at data, and you can now do those kind of things. Essentially, it's lowering the skill barrier to go, you don't have to go through this massive learning journey to get to the point when you can do it. It's democratizing it for everyone. I've got the keynote notes on point,
I love that phrase, yeah.
It's just trying to say, actually, it's way easier to get started in this stuff than it's ever been before, and it's going to get easier.
Yeah.
We're not quite at the point yet when it's a ChatGTP style kind of build me an LLM and then it'll go through and do it, but we're not far away, right?
And the videos that you have, is it advancing analytics on YouTube? Is that what you would subscribe to?
Search for advancing analytics. Search for Databricks on YouTube and you can find us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Shameless plug.
The first time I had to say that on YouTube, I was like, oh no, what's become of me? And now it's just automatic.
and it's great since, what Pearl, you were saying, how do you get started? Everyone's on a different AI journey.
Yeah.
Getting started, getting their first model into production, operationalizing it, using perhaps ML flow. Then before you know it, you have hundreds, thousands of models.
Yeah.
Like, what is some advice, like, for the more advanced people? Like, what's next?
What's going to be next? Honestly, I don't know.
Or what's leading edge that you see here, or some of the announcements you've seen today?
I mean, it's all going to be about doing it quicker and doing it more and doing it far more easily. It's going to be about, again, one of the big messages is taking these like amazing pre-trained models and going, actually, I can do that myself, and it's not going to cost me $1 million. Being able to do these massive transformational projects, but not needing the level of maturity they used to. But, data engineer, there's still the passionate thing, like, your data needs to be good.
Yeah.
If your data isn't good, none of this stuff actually works. How long until it starts going, actually, not just measuring data quality, so we saw some of the Lakehouse monitoring things, keeping track of it, reporting back and going, how clean's your data? Pretty soon, not long, until it goes, this is how you should clean your data. Here's a feedback loop, and actually it's not telling you your data's bad, it's saying your data was bad and we fixed it,
Yeah.
and now actually we cleaned up the data so you can put it into a model, and actually maybe you won't need to have as much passionate, old grizzled engineers shouting at you to how to build a good stable platform. It's just going to be a good stable platform.
Yeah.
Not there yet, but it's a number of years, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is just going to get more and more baked in, and I'm going to be out of a job, but it'll be okay.
Well, I think your job will be elevated
Exactly.
to more complex and strategy. But on that note, the time has flown. I hope we somehow get to do more, evangelism together.
Yeah, it'd be great.
So hopefully this is just one stop along the journey. But the tens of thousands of people on, appreciate you being here. Simon,
Thank you.
We're all fans of yours.
No worries.
Thanks for being
It's
on.
been a pleasure being live from the Lakehouse. Thank you,
Yes.
guys.
Thank you for joining us live at the Lakehouse, Simon. Take care.
Great. And joining us now, we also have Matteo, who lives in Brussels, but has lived a lot of time in Italy as well. So welcome. Why don't
Thank you.
I have
start
a
by
question to
introducing?
start. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
You were from Brussels. How was the flight?
It was long. It was long.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but I'm here now. I'm very
Yes.
excited. So, yeah, Matteo. I'm based in Brussels. I work for BSA, the Software Alliance. It's a global trade association representing enterprise software companies, including Databricks. So my job is to really represent these companies in Europe mostly, and my colleagues do that elsewhere in the world on a lot of policy issues from data to cybersecurity to law enforcement access to trade, and AI is obviously the tip of the spear there. So we do a lot of work with policymakers, with NGOs, to try and represent what our companies are doing in the field of AI in all the phases. And one aspect that is particularly dear to us is how ethics is factored into the design, development, deployment of AI, and how you relate to your customers. So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we're glad you're here. 157 countries are participating live or on the live stream. So thank you, everyone from around the world. And Brussels, though, is like one of the world headquarters, for human rights. And now that is so fascinating to see the artificial intelligence, AI, being a part of that. So what type of government agencies, local, worldwide, are you involved with?
So we work primarily with the European Union, so it's a large regional body putting together 27 member states. So most of that is legislative work. The EU is working on a lot of legislative proposals, including one on artificial intelligence. It's likely to be the first place in the world to have a comprehensive framework for legislation for AI, which will include a number of obligations when it comes to, we can call it ethical, trustworthy AI, so protection of what in Europe is called fundamental rights, here in the US would be constitutional rights, and how companies are supposed to deal with that. Obviously, there is a lot of work that also is on us to explain to policymakers, to the general public, the very diverse ecosystem of AI. Obviously, most of the times what happens is that AI is associated with a couple of use cases, and then policymakers tend to want to respond to those even in legislation. So our job is also to make sure that it's understood that there's a lot of companies out there that are doing very different things, very cool things that can be very helpful, and also can pose some challenges when it comes to ethical AI. I think bias, for example, is one of the main aspects there. And the industry is not shying away from its role in being sure that unfair bias and bias management in general is an important piece of AI design and development.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speaking of bias, what are some key things that companies can do to avoid bias when working with their data?
There is a lot that they can do and they should do. So I'm very proud to say that BSA has worked with BSA members to develop a bias framework to put together a lot of best practices and guidelines coming directly from members and what they do in practice to mitigate bias. Obviously, it's always context dependent, and it's nice as a lawyer to say it depends, right? Because that get me out of a lot of trouble. But it can happen in a million different places. The diversity of the teams putting together AI is very important. Having good quality data sets is incredibly important, and it's important in the input phase and the design phase. It's important after the fact. Having a coordination between the developer and the deployer. The fact that this is often a multi-layered value chain means having good mechanisms there to communicate and see when adverse effects are happening and try and understand why. But at the end of the day, it really is a lot context dependent. The good news is that AI does not exist in a vacuum. There's a lot of laws already out there. So it's important to make it so that these laws are enforced also when it comes to AI. And BSA wants to be there to showcase our members are working in that space.
Great. And I was curious, like, Databricks, we are one of the top platforms, if not the top, for developing LLMs. Part of that is it could be on your own proprietary data. It doesn't kind of get out there, which I think, for privacy could be a big thing. Like, what are your thoughts either on that or any of the announcements made this morning, but like the aspect of enterprises having their own custom-built LLMs on their own data?
That's very important, and I think it's a very good development from a more old-fashioned world where you would have kind of a binary situation where you have the service provider that controls a bit everything, and then the entity that is putting that software to use. And we are also very honestly constantly trying to communicate with the policymakers that it's not a Best Buy world anymore where you can buy your AI in your nice package and put it on your computer. This is a two-way street, and there is a lot of responsibilities that need to be shared. And the possibility, especially for customers of Databricks and other BSA members to have that degree of control is extremely important because they are closer to the finish line. They're there, they know what they're doing with their data. They are empowered by Databricks to know how and what is happening with their data. And at the same time, they need to feel that they have a responsibility to manage the data, especially when it comes to privacy. And as you know, Europe is very, very strong on privacy. So also from just a compliance perspective, it's really important to have the degree of control.
Yeah, so it's going to be a busy week with over 300 sessions taking place. Is there any that you're personally looking forward to?
I was really interested to hear a lot of what Databricks is announcing today. It's really cool to see that Databricks is working both on a very technical aspect, and half of the words I don't understand because I'm a lawyer by training, so I'm just there nodding, pretending everything is fine. But also supporting customers and of Databricks to understand what is happening with their data. And also eventually integrating a lot of that through the compliance chain. And that's often very boring, often very complicated, but it's extremely important because it's not just something that gives work to lawyers, it's eventually what protects consumers and customers and the individuals that make up these companies and individuals out there in the world that may be subject to the use of an artificial intelligence or something else. So being empowered to have that degree of control is extremely important, and it's great to see that even without necessarily obligations on Databricks, you guys are out there doing it already and empowering others to do so.
Great. Well, we have about 30 seconds left. I know you mentioned that, some things that could be potentially challenging and some things that are incredibly helpful. Let's focus on the positive. Like, what you think will be great about generative AI?
I mean, I've been here 2 days and I've heard so many cool ideas already. I know Databricks is doing a lot of incredible stuff. Again, even in my world, the ability to actually use AI for compliance is incredible. The ability of Databricks, for example, to translate old code and make it new code and bring back a number of software platforms that may have been obsolete is incredibly cool. I've seen a lot of generative AI being used, for example, in video games and make video games becoming unscripted. That's incredibly cool. So it's a brave new world out there. It's a lot of incredible stuff. And just 2 days in San Francisco, I'm super excited.
Well, great. Well, thank you for being on here.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. We have the agenda. So Pearl and I will be here all day, every single break. So have a look through. We have some great guests coming up. And thank you for tuning in.